just as I promised, tonight we will finish The Witch of Blackbird Pond, chapter 21. I'm sorry, I just couldn't do it the other day. Just lost all my energy, but we will get it done tonight. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is the summary for chapters 18 through 20. So one second, let me get those up here. I know everyone has been loving this book, and I appreciate all the suggestions. I'm going to kind of keep it a secret as to what we do next, okay? But I will let you know within the next week, okay? So, here we go. Chapter 18 summary. Peace is just settling in the Wood household. Mercy and Judith are recuperating. Remember, they've been very sick. Kit is very grateful to Matthew for standing up for her. For once, the atmosphere is relaxed when the townspeople, led by Mrs. Cruff, come knocking on their door. The family is not prepared for what is to come. A group of townspeople is there to arrest Kit. They had not managed to get Hannah. They think she had turned herself into a rat. Mrs. Cruff convinces the townspeople that Hannah has left Kit to carry on her work. They have the proof. They have found Kit's notebook inside Hannah's house. Kit openly admits that she visited Hannah, but once again insisted that the older lady is not a witch. Encouraged by Mrs. Cruff, the group insists that Kit has to be arrested and sent to trial. They lock her in a shed outside the constable's house. A constable is like the city police officer. The trial will be the next day. The shed is cold and damp, and Kit is feeling scared and lonely. I would too. She's relieved when her Aunt Rachel comes to see her. Kit asks Rachel what happens to witches. Rachel says nothing, but she is obviously lying. Mrs. Cruff resents Kit from the very beginning. There's an instant antipathy between the woman and the girl. Antipathy means bad feelings. As the townspeople did not manage to get Hannah, they need to find another scapegoat. A scapegoat is someone who takes the blame for someone else. The young girl, Kit, who is a stranger to the town and whose behavior and way of dressing is not at all Puritan, is the perfect target for the people's hate. The punishment for witchcraft in the colonial community can even be death. So, that's a possibility that she could be put to death. Okay, chapter 19. So, she has a sleepless night in the shed. She's taken to trial the next morning. The charges against her are read, and she's accused of dealing with Satan and of being a friend to Hannah, who is an alleged witch. In other words, they call her a witch, but they really don't have any proof. These crimes are punishable by death. The first question they ask Kit is whether or not she's a friend of Hannah. And of course, Kit says yes. Then they continue with all their questions, and all sorts of accusations are thrown at her, like she walked past a field and a cow won't give milk. Weird things. Matthew tries to defend her, but it's not working. He publicly vouches for her behavior, but the court comes back and says, did she deliberately disobey you? And of course he had to say yes. Mr. and Mrs. Cruff present the little copybook Kit has given Prudence as proof that Kit is thinking of doing evil. Because Prudence's name is written over and over and over, they think it's like a spell. Prudence takes the stand when Nat comes into the courtroom with her, and tells the court the Kit has taught her to read and write. The court doesn't believe her to begin with, so she proves it to them by reading perfectly from the Bible. Mrs. Cruff is very put out. She's very upset. But Mr. Cruff is very proud that his daughter can read. Thanks to Nat and Prudence, Kit is acquitted or let go of all the charges, and her life is saved. Nat leaves immediately after the hearing because he's been banned from town because of the prank that they played on William on Halloween or the All Hallows occasion. The analysis for Chapter 19. Once the rumor has spread that Kit is a witch, people start imagining all sorts of spells and curses that she has cast. Everything and anything that has gone wrong is blamed on Kit. It's very difficult for even the most reasonable men to calm the townspeople's exaltation and make them see reason. Now for Chapter 20. The first snow begins to fall, and Kit has never seen snow before. She's fascinated by its beauty, but as time goes by, she starts to feel depressed and lonely. That's normal in the wintertime. William, of course, did not show up for the trial. And Kit's very disappointed. But he finally comes over afterwards, and he tells her that he's ready to forget and forgive her for what happened. And now that Hannah Tupper is left, maybe she will forget all this nonsense and leave Prudence to her own devices. Kit realizes she will never, ever be able to depend upon him and give her the support that she needs. William also realizes that Kit will never be able to accept the Puritan ways, and he won't be able to accept her free-spirited behavior. And so they both decide together that it's best that they not carry their relationship any further. Meanwhile, 2 militiamen come back to town, and their news is not the best. They report that the Indians have attacked their regiment, and all the other members of their group have either been killed or taken prisoner. Everyone is shocked. The militiamen have no news of John Holbrook or his fate or what happened to him. Judith, of course, is very upset, and William comes to her support immediately. During the next few months, William is a great comfort to her. Mercy, though, has to keep her sorrow to herself, because remember, Mercy's really in love with John. The winter months are dragging out. Kit's getting progressively more depressed. She misses Nat and wonders whether she should have gone with him when he took Hannah to his grandmother's. She's homesick, and she's thinking of going back to Barbados. One evening, when the family is at home, a thin, bedraggled man comes to the door. Bedraggled is kind of like he's kind of, his clothes are torn and dirty, and it's John Holbrook, who has actually survived the Indian attack. He goes straight up to Mercy and holds her. The analysis for Chapter 20. On turning William down, Kit makes a very courageous decision. Life in that time was very difficult for a woman on her own. Most women married for convenience. The man could make his choice for a bride. Usually the woman would meekly accept the man's attention and be grateful that she was not left a spinster. A spinster is someone who's not married but is older. To turn down such an eligible catch is not a decision that many women would make. Kit's independence is amazing and very rare in those days. And so now, Chapter 21. I can't wait. Okay, here we go. Let me get to the right page here. Okay, where is it? Oh no, I've already read that part. That was chapter 20. Chapter 21. The Witch of Blackbird Pond. On a lecture day in April, 2 marriage intentions were announced together in the meeting house. John Holbrook and Mercy Wood, William Ashby and Judith Wood. The Wood household was busy from dawn till close to midnight. There was so much to do if all were to be ready for the double wedding that was set for early May. There was the vital matter of 2 dowries. Judith had been carefully hoarding a small store of linen since childhood, adding 1 cherished bit from time to time, and her loom and needle had worked busily. But Mercy had never given a thought to a dowry. She had not a single pillowcase or linen napkin that she could call her own. Now, though Rachel fussed and stitched, Mercy still regarded the whole problem with indifference. Why did she need a dowry, she argued practically, when she was really not leaving home at all? She and John had already decided that for the first year at least, they had best share the Woods' ample house. The company room was being readied with fresh whitewash and new linen curtains. John had resumed his studies with Dr. Bulkley. All his uncertainty had disappeared, and his steady eye and voice plainly revealed the core of strength that Kit had always sensed beneath his gentleness. In the days of his captivity, of which he never spoke, in the waiting for a chance to escape, and in the weary hunted trail down the Connecticut River, John had found his answers. Dr. Bulkley is everything I ever thought him to be, a great scholar and a great gentleman, he explained. In politics he is obeying his own conscience, but I think he is mistaken. We have come to an understanding. He will teach me theology and medicine, but I will think as I please. By June, he would be ready to accept a call to one of the small parishes springing up to the south and west of Wethersfield. William's house on Broad Street was nearly finished. Piece by piece he was assembling the costly treasures for its furnishing. Fine hand-turned bedsteads and chests and chairs from the skilled Wethersfield joiner, Peter Blend, glossy pewter plates, and a set of silver spoons from Boston, real china bowls of blue and white Delft from Holland. Judith knew where every piece would go in the new house and how to care for each lovely thing to keep it shiny. She and William spent their evenings in happy planning, and their contentment was good to see. Kit had never found William so likable before. In the midst of all this preparation, Kit silently made her own plans. She would not share them with anyone till every detail was carefully provided for. Her leaving would be a shock to them, she knew. Rachel and Matthew, in his own way, looked upon her as a daughter, but even a daughter, though welcomed and loved, could come to be a problem. There was no real place for her here. With John to help with the planting, and Mercy still sharing the work of the household, there was no obligation now to hold Kit to the tasks she hated. They would protest, they might even sorrow a little, but in their hearts wouldn't they be relieved to see her go? The ice on the river broke into great floating blocks and gradually thinned and disappeared. The ferry boat began its daily journeys from Smith's Landing back and forth to the opposite shore. Small boats slipped out of their winter moorings, and one day a bustling, cheering crowd thronged along High Street to greet the first sailing ship up from New London. That afternoon Kit climbed to the attic and surveyed the 7 small trunks. She had not looked inside them all winter. Now, one after the other, she threw back the lids and lifted the filmy dresses, holding them up to the dim light. How long ago it seemed that she had worn these things. Could it be not quite a year? The silks and muslins and gauzes still gleamed, unworn and beautiful, and doubtless they were still fashionable. She touched them wistfully. It would be good to shed these shabby woolen garments and feel once more the softness of silk against her skin, and to hear the rustle of petticoats whenever she moved. But the dresses must serve another purpose now. Would they bring enough to pay her passage on a ship? Fine cloth like this was rare in Connecticut. In many families she had learned one dress such as these would be handed down through 3 generations as a cherished possession. Surely in Hartford, or perhaps even here in Wethersfield, she would find willing buyers, even though she had not yet worked out a plan for approaching them. As she lifted the peacock green dress, she hesitated. How radiant Judith had looked in this dress! If only William could see me in it, she had said. She laid aside the dress, and very thoughtfully she chose another, a fine, blue-flowered muslin. These 2 she would take directly to Uncle Matthew, and this time she felt sure he would let his daughters accept them, because he would know now that she offered the gifts with love instead of pride. All Kit's plans now turned toward Barbados. She had no illusions about the prospect before her. She would not be going back as Sir Francis Tyler's granddaughter. She would go as a single woman who must work for her living. Her best chance, she had decided, lay in seeking employment as a governess in one of the wealthy families. She liked teaching children, and hopefully there might be a library where she could extend her own learning as well as that of her charges. Whatever befell, there would be a blue sky overhead, and the warmth and color and fragrance and beauty that her heart craved. One day in mid-April, she walked alone down South Road. She could not go far, for the river was still very high from the melting snows. It had overflowed so that the fringe of the poplar trees on its banks stood deep in water, and the cornfields were transformed into endless lakes. Blackbird Pond had been swallowed up, and Hannah's house, had it still been standing there, would have been flooded up to its thatched roof. Poor Hannah! How had she endured this ordeal year after year, watching while the water crept nearer and nearer, stowing her valuables higher in the rafters, moving away goodness only knew where to wait out the season in some deserted barn or warehouse, and creeping back when the water receded to scrub out her house and replant her soggy garden. Kit was thankful, as she had been so many times when the wind howled and the snow piled higher, that her friend was snug in a proper house. But she knew a pang of homesickness none the less. The little cottage had been very dear to her. She perched on a sun-dried rock and sniffed the air. There was an earthy, indefinable scent that stirred her senses. The new shoots of the willows were sharp yellow-green. The bare twigs of the maples were tipped by swelling redbuds. A low bush nearby had blossomed in tiny gray balls. She reached to touch one curiously. It was furry and soft as the kitten that Prudence had held in her arms that summer afternoon. All at once Kit was aware that this New England, which had shown her the miracle of autumn and the white wonder of snow, had a new secret in store. This time it was a subtle promise, a tantalizing hint of beauty still withheld, a beckoning to her spirit to follow she knew not where. She had forgotten that summer would come again, that the green would spread over the frozen fields, that the earth would be turned up to the sun, and the seeds sown, and that the meadows would renew themselves. Was this what strengthened these New Englanders to endure the winter? The knowledge that summer's return would be all the richer for the waiting? Yet the spring air held a sadness, too, sharper than all the loneliness of winter. The promise was not for her. I am going away, she thought, and for the first time the reminder brought no delight, only a deeper longing. She did not want to leave this place, after all. Suppose she should never walk in the meadows again. Suppose she should never sit in the twilight with Mercy, or see Judith in the new house, or the girl Prudence would grow to be. Suppose she should never see Nat Eaton again. Suddenly she was trembling. She snatched at the dream that had comforted her for so long. It was faded and thin, like a letter too often read. She tried to remember how it had felt to stand on the deck of the Dolphin and see before her the harbor of Barbados. The haunting joy eluded her. The dream shores were dim and unreal. Why had she closed her heart to the true meaning of the dream? How long had she really known that the piercing happiness of that moment had come not from the sight of the harbor at all, but from the certainty that the one she loved stood beside her? If only I could go with Nat, she realized suddenly. It wouldn't matter where we went, to Barbados or just up and down this river. The Dolphin would be home. Enough. There is no escape if love is not there, Hannah had said. Had Hannah known when she herself had not even suspected? It was not escape that she had dreamed about. It was love. And love was Nat. It must have been Nat from the beginning, she admitted now, and with that knowledge came a sureness that she had never known in all the last bewildering year. Memories of Nat came crowding back to her, agile and sure-footed as she had first known him, leaning far out on a yardarm to grasp a billowing sail, throwing back his head in laughter or shooting hot sparks of temper, sitting on a thatched roof in the sunshine, coming miraculously out of the fog that morning, bending tenderly to lift a frightened old woman into the rowboat, and, as she had seen him last, standing erect by the door of the magistrate's office, sending across the anger and confusion a steady reassurance and strength. Nat is New England, too, she thought, like John Holbrook and Uncle Matthew. Why have I never seen that he is one of them? Under that offhand way of his, there is the same rock. Hannah has leaned on it for years, and I refused to see. Was it too late? He asked me to go, she reminded herself. But what did he mean? Only that he could never bear to see anyone in trouble? And he came back. He risked the whipping post to come back and help me. But he took the same risk to rescue a yellow cat. After a long time, Kit started slowly home. The sun slanted low in the sky, and behind her there began a sweet, disturbing melody. Peepers, Judith had said, the little frogs that lived in the swamp, and why should the sound of them tear at her heart? Too late, they queried over and over, and she fled along the road to the house where she could shut herself away from them. From that moment in the meadow, Kit ceased to plan at all. She only waited. Somehow she found a way to meet every trading ship that came up the river. How beautiful these proud little sailing ships were! She never glimpsed their spreading sails without an answering surge of her spirits. Yet every new mast that rounded the bend of the river brought at the same time a fresh plunge of disappointment. Always she waited, her eyes straining to make out the figure on the prow, and always, at the sight of those strange, glistening white figureheads, her heart sank. Why did the dolphin not come? On the 2nd day of May, she came out on Wethersfield Landing. As she came out on Wethersfield Landing, a trim little ketch was already tied up, fresh painted with clean white canvas, and not a barnacle on its hull. It must have been newly launched. The wharf was a confusion of unloading and bartering. A seaman in a blue coat bent to check a row of barrels, and as he straightened up, even before he turned, or before she consciously recognized him, Kit began to run. "Nat!" The greeting burst from her. He turned and saw her, and then he was running too. As he caught her hand, she came to a stop. The wharf, the ship, and Nat himself swinging in a dizzy arc before her eyes. "Kit! It is Kit, isn't it? Not Mistress Ashby?" "Oh, no, Nat, no!" "I thought the old dolphin would never make it." The blue gaze was too intense. She had to look away, and abruptly she was conscious of the crowded dock. She pulled her hands away and stepped back, trying, too late, to retrieve her dignity. How was Hannah?" she stammered. "Chipper as a sandpiper. She and Gran had been fine company for each other." "And the dolphin? Did something happen to her?" "Just a heavy blow. She's hove down for repairs at the yard. What do you think of the new ketch?" "She's lovely." Then something in his tone made her look at him more sharply. The blue coat with brass buttons was brand new, and pride sparkled over Nat like the shiny paint on the new vessel. "Nat, you can't mean she's yours?" "All but a few payments. By the end of a good summer's trade, she'll be every inch mine, from stem to stern." "I can't believe it. She's beautiful. Nat, even more beautiful than the dolphin." "Have you noticed her name?" Kit leaned sideways to see the letters painted jauntily on the transom. "The Witch." "How did you dare? Does Hannah know?" "Oh, she's not named after Hannah. I hadn't gone 10 miles down the river that day before I knew I'd left the real witch behind." She did not dare look up at him. "Can I see her, Nat?" she asked instead. "Will you take me on board?" "No, not yet." His voice was full of decision. "I want to see your uncle first. Kit," his words came in an unpremeditated rush, "will he think it is enough, the new catch? There'll be the house some day in Saybrook, or here in Wethersfield, if you like. I've thought of nothing else all winter. In November we'll sail south to the Indies. In the summer? In the summer Hannah and I will have a garden. Kit," he glanced ruefully about the busy wharf, "of all the places to choose, I didn't plan it like this. Aren't you going to invite me at home with you?" Happiness brimmed over into shaky laughter. "Captain Eaton, we'd be proud to have you dine with us." "Then must we stay here any longer?" She took the arm he offered, but still she lingered, looking back. "I want to see the catch. Please, Nat. Before we go, I can't wait any longer to see my namesake." "No," he said again, leading her firmly toward the road. "That ketch has a mind of her own. She's contrary as a very witch herself. All the way up the river she's been holding back somehow, waiting. Now you'll both have to wait. I'm not going to disappoint her, Kit. When I take you on board the Witch, It's going to be for keeps. The end. The end. I'm going to read you the author's note here too. The story of Kit Tyler is entirely fictitious. The house in which the Wood family lived and all the adventures which took place there existed only in imagination. But old houses much like it can still be seen in Wethersfield, one of the first settlements of the Connecticut colony. The great meadows still stretch quietly along the river, and a relic of an old warehouse marks the once thriving river port. A few real people walk through the imaginary story. Sir Edmund Andros, the royal governor, Captain Samuel Talcott, the magistrate, Eleazar Kimberly, the schoolmaster, and Reverend Gershom Bulkley, the ardent royalist, were important men in their time, and the freemen's struggle to preserve their charter is known to every school child in Connecticut. The end of The Witch of Blackbird Pond. Thank you for being with me. I think what I will do is read you the analysis for Chapter 1. In the end, everyone is destined to be happy. Through all the difficulties, love conquers. Kit, with her free spirit, would never have been happy in Wethersfield. The puritanical life is not meant for her. She is meant to be free. There is no one better to be with than someone with her same spirit. There will still be hardship and work, but it won't break her spirit. Thank you once again for being with me through this story. May God bless you and keep you. May He make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May He lift up His countenance upon you and grant you His peace. Shalom. Until the new book. Bye.